Dabro Pajalovit Vasi. That means welcome to Russia, or kind of close to that. Uh, Welcome back for another video. This here is the Sochi Grand Prix League Race 8 of 8. I'm starting this basically 41 points or 45 points down from third place as I'm sitting in fourth. And so I figured instead of, showing this race, since there isn't much at stake and actually turned out to be quite a boring race to watch, I'd instead talk about some of the things that I've learned after doing a full league race of F1 2020. Because I feel like there are a lot of things you can improve on. As you're doing league racing, I think it's all about what works best for your group of players. And although the game gives you a lot of tools to make that better, I think there's a lot of things that at least I learned that I will be applying to the next season that you could also look to apply. And so I think it's basically five things, but five categories. Starting first with becoming a better driver, which is kind of the obvious thing. If you want to do good in league race, if you want to have fun, really, you just have to get better. And luckily, I find that F1 2020 tends to be a game where, like, the more you play, the better you get, the faster you get. It's quite easy to see if you're doing time trial for about an hour, if you're at least my skill level, which is still kind of novice, I will get better the more I play. And so one of the things I learned when it comes to, staying away from walls is one of those things. But really one of the things that I found to be really important with league races is practicing. So practice is important because practice equals confidence, equals faster lap times, equals better overtaking. I've gone into league race. I think it was like the Red Bull Ring, where I didn't practice that much. I did maybe like 125% GP, and I had a couple online 5 lap races under my belt, so I thought I would be good off, but I just wasn't in it. I just wasn't clicking as well. I was spinning all over the place, and at the end, I kind of just threw in the towel because I knew I just didn't have it in me. And so I found out, kind of a good model that works for me going into those league races. And I think it's a combination of about 2 hours on time trial, just, trying to get a good lap out and just, getting consistent at running a lot of laps in a row. So like, for example, if I take a lap and I spin, I will practice getting back on track and just like keep going. And I think that helps a lot when it comes to qualifying, to kind of get that qualifying pace. But it really does not help when it comes to race strategy and race pace, really. If I were to do, and I think this has happened to me in the past, where I just do all time trials and then I'll get a good qualifying pace, but when it comes to actually racing around other cars, I would be just super lost. Like, I wouldn't know what to do, or where to overtake, or when to like manage my tires or use the ERS or whatnot. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Time trial is important, and it's a good way to learn tracks. But you should also do a couple Grand Prix, like 25% Grand Prix, throw in a couple wet Grand Prix. I had a race this league season at Spa where everything started off dry, but then I think 3/4 of the way into the race it started to rain, and like it was like full panic mode because I was out there on slicks, and as soon as the rain started pouring down, I completely lost it. I didn't know if I should get into intermediates. I ended up switching tires like at a bad time, and I think I was in second, and I don't know how, but I managed to finish in ninth, and that was a really bad race. So you definitely want to practice in the wet, just so you could get a feel for where the braking zones are, how you can really afford to get on the throttle, and like also at what point does the track start to dry up, and where you can start pushing it a lot, a lot faster coming out of corners. Because one of the things that you will learn when driving in the wet is that initially when you first get out there, your first lap, the track is really wet, and so you really have to be cautious. But over time, the track dries up, and then you can start to use the gas a little bit more. I would also, want to give a big shout out to people like Bushy Ants and TRL Limitless that make track guides, those have become super useful for me. I think pretty much every GP in this game, or I think it was, or in F1 2019 or F1 2017, before I would actually go out there, I would watch their track videos a bunch. Using their setups as kind of a starting point was very valuable to me, and learning their braking points and when to get on the gas and when to maybe upshift a little bit early to get that extra traction. That's been very valuable to me, and so would definitely recommend checking out their videos. Basically, like for Russia, for example, if you just YouTube Russia setup or Russia track guide, you'll find a handful of videos. Like I mentioned, Bushy Ants, TRL Limitless. I think there's James and a couple of other people have some really, really detailed track guides. And those are a lifesaver, to be honest. I don't know where I would be without them. But on to the next point, I would say league settings are important. So like I mentioned earlier, you want to have league settings that work for everybody within the group. And odds are, if you don't have a 20-man roster, if you're just playing with friends, it's kind of hard to get 20 people all on board to play F1 2020. So you'll have some AI players in there. And I think the trick there is finding an AI level that is at a good spot. If the AI is too low, the AI will make dumb decisions. For example, like I've had AI stop just way too early in braking zones, leading me to crashing into them because they're just going so slow. And so that's not fun at all, because then I end up spinning, I get the penalty because they're driving slow. But at the same time, if I were to crack the AI up to 110, I wouldn't be racing against the AI, and so it would be like the AI will be running away with the championship. And so you don't necessarily want AI getting trophies in your league races, or at least not the first trophy. And so I think that's a key element. What I found is there was actually a post on Reddit that I will link in the description that gives a good advice to actually go and do a GP or a 5-lap race at Spain, because Spain is the most balanced circuit, and find an AI level where you are competing with your teammate. So maybe you're within, I think, about 2/10 of your teammate. So either your teammate is 2/10 faster than you, or you're 2/10 faster than you, and kind of find that range. And so ideally, if you're doing a league race and you have 6 people, you'd want to have all 6 people kind of do that test and, pick kind of a lower score, within that spectrum. And so I think that's kind of what we're going to do for our next league race, to find a good point where it's fun overtaking the AI, but at the same time, we still want to be fighting against humans for the most part. And also, one thing that's really important to point out when it comes to the AI is that AI levels are very different based on the racetrack. I don't know why that's the case, but for example, off the top of my head, I think it's like Silverstone, for example. Like, let's say you're confident, you have fun playing with the AI level at 80. When you get to Silverstone, you might want to turn that up to like 85 or 83 or something, and so you want to keep those those adjustments in mind. And the link from Reddit, the guy actually had a couple suggestions in there, and I found those to work really, really well to kind of make sure the AI stays level regardless of the racetrack that you're on. But now on to point number 3, and I guess this kind of relates back to league settings, and this is talking about assists. And so I think it's important, first of all, when you're playing this, to have fun. Like, even though it is a league race, and odds are if you're doing a league race, you're going to be competitive. It should be fun for everyone that's playing, and not everybody is going to be at your level, and not everybody is going to have a lot of experience. So you want to find a point that's fun for everybody. I think that's really important. But also, controversies, tend to come out when players would assist on or dominating the grid of players that aren't playing with them. And I think that's one of the points where it tends to be kind of unfair if you really want to, compete for gold or whatever it might be. Because then it feels like if you're playing without assists, there is a handicap. And not only that, but assist, playing with assist like traction control or brake assist, or like the racing line will limit your development as a driver. And so you're putting a lot of time into F1 2020, so ideally you'd want to be getting better as you play it. And I think one of the solutions that we're trying to like figure out for the next league's race is to maybe limit assists based on league standing. So for example, if you're the first person in the league standings, then you can't run with any assist on. And so that's even including ABS, so no traction control, no racing line, no pit assist, or whatever it might be. You have to play on a realistic level. And then maybe for second place, we could do, traction control is okay, and then maybe pit assist is okay, or whatever. And third place, well, you could do brake assist or whatever. But I think that might be a good compromise. So we'll see. Either we'll do that, or maybe we'll just leave it as first place. You got to play with nothing on, and see how that goes. Because I know that playing without ABS is definitely challenging. When I tried to do Sochi with no ABS, man, that was brutal. I could do Monza with no ABS, like really just fine. But like tracks like Sochi, were really hard. And now on to point number 4. When it comes to rules, like general rules for the league, I thought 50% was really the sweet spot. I think 100% league races like sound fun because you have more strategies involved when it comes to tire, right? Like one stop probably won't work for a lot of times when it comes to 100% league races. So I don't know. I think 50% really is the sweet spot. 25% is a little bit too short. But I would love to hear from other people that have run 100% league races. Like, how was that? Because I already feel like 50% league races, like I'm in my seat for a long time. And then like my ankle is starting to like fall asleep as I'm like, getting on the gas and stuff. But yeah, I could see the pros and cons to each, but I think 50% is good. 18-minute qualifying I thought was really good. Like it's good enough. Maybe if you have more than 10 humans and then, you want to go and see who can make it out of Q3, see who can make it out of Q2, that will be fun to do. Otherwise damage. So damage is a big thing. When we ran this league race, we had no damage on. But that limits the need for drivers to be clean. Even like with low damage on, you really have to watch out for your front wing. And so you really have to be mindful when you're driving behind someone of the dirty air and when to brake early. Because if you do and you ram into someone, not only might you spin yourself, but then you'll have front wing damage. So then you'll have to, you might have to switch out your front wing, or you might just, become a whole lot slower. And so I think that would be like, kind of a disincentive of driving too aggressive, if that makes sense. And it would really help for turn 1 chaos. Like there's been a couple league races where like just turn 1 there's just like huge pile-ups happen and debris is flying over. Well, I guess no debris since there's no damage, but yeah, I think we're gonna do low damage next race, and then so that would help. Additionally, I wish like there was more for penalties. Like I know some leagues tend to have stewards because the game just isn't accurate at handing out penalties. There's a lot of times where cars will bump into each other and the game just won't give out a penalty, or sometimes it'll give out a penalty to the wrong person. And that's like super frustrating as a driver as you're competing. If it's really not your fault, but the game, gives out a penalty, it just doesn't make sense. And so I think, considering how easy cars can spin in this game and just lose it, there needs to be something along that aspect. And maybe one of the things that was discussed was that players would self-inflict penalties. So if I hit you and then I didn't get a penalty, but I knew like it was a very obvious, then, maybe we just add 5 seconds at the end of the race or something like that. But I think that's worth exploring. Ideally, we'd have like standalone stewards that would watch the race and pay attention to stuff, but that's a whole different story. Also, one of the things that's, kind of up for debate is when it comes to corner cutting. So we ran corner cutting, in a regular setting for this league race, and it turned out to be, kind of okay per se, but there's a lot of times where people could just get away with like crazy stuff. And so I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I like the fact that you don't get laps invalidated for like the smallest of things, because I feel like in a strict settings, it's even stricter than in real life. But in regular setting, it's, it's there's, you could just get away with so much in regular settings, and I think it's a little bit too much. And I wonder if having strict settings for corner stringency might even be another incentive for drivers to drive more cleanly, maybe. But point number 5 is scheduling, and so scheduling tends to be pretty tough. I think, we'll just talk about the calendar in general. We had 8 races, but I think like 10 to 12 would be more ideal. I like the shorter format. I don't want to do like a full 22 races. But I feel like 10 to 12 would be cool, because with the 8 races, like the standings are pretty much set by, race 6 or 7. Whereas if you were to add to that, then, a little bit more drama could happen. But as far as scheduling goes, I thought once a week was a bit much. Sometimes I like how in F1 they'll have double headers or they'll have triple headers, but then you get a break in between. So I think that would be a better way to go about it for kind of more casual players. If you're doing this as as your day job, and you're on an esports team, then like, yeah, you should be racing at least once a week. But it's hard with a real life, to just practice and then make each Grand Prix and stuff. That's meeting every race consistently is kind of tough. But yeah, that's kind of it. Of all the things that I've learned, just to recap, I think becoming a better driver, practice is important. League settings, making sure you have the right AI level is important. Figuring out your assists that work for everyone. So not only for the bottom drivers, but also for the top drivers, to make things fair. And then rules. Yeah, I think rules are very debatable. But 50%, kind of seems to be the sweet spot. Corner stringency, I don't know. I think damage on low is cool. But if there were things like, just to add like a 6th point, things that I wish the game did. I really, 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 really wish the game offered replays. Once your race is done, if you're playing in single player, you get to view highlights and replays of the race. And like, I understand highlights could be a little bit difficult with 20 different players, but like, at least if we could see the replay, that would be just so much more fun. Like, for example, here, instead of just showing you me driving with nobody in front and nobody behind me, I could show you somebody that's fighting for position or something like that. And it would just also be a lot easier, when talking about penalties, to look back and everybody could see what happened in that instance, to see who was at fault. But I feel like, I don't know, it's just such a trivial thing. I'm really surprised Codemasters hasn't offered that yet. And then, multiplayer career modes, like, that would be like really, really, really cool. And I think it's possible. It kind of reminds me of like, and for NFL football, Madden offers connected franchises where you each play as a general manager, and you have to do this and that. And so it would be cool to have all those engine problems and that you have to deal with when you're managing a car over the course of a season. So you'd have to also be aware of the wear on your car, and also there'll be like a development race and stuff. So I feel like that would be a lot of fun, dealing with sponsors and stuff. So that would be cool. Another big thing, like, there was a petition going for this, with like, I think 100,000 signatures or something. But crossplay will be so amazing, because I feel like everybody is just split up everywhere when it comes to F1 2020. Like, there's so many drivers on PS4, so many drivers on Xbox. You got a lot of drivers that are on British time. You got drivers that are on Australian time. So, for example, we play on Pacific Standard Time on PS4, but if we could just open that up to Xbox and PC, that would give us so many more people to like join our league. And the more humans, the more fun. And the last thing that I wish Codemasters did with this game would be if I can speak, would be related to the AI. I wish there was more help with leveling the AI, and having the AI kind of be at a point that's competitive for you. Like, why do I have to go into Spain and kind of write down where my teammate is going to check if they're two tenths within me or whatnot? Like that works, but I wish there was just more work as far as the AI. And I think that's one of those things that can always be improved on. But I was watching this video about Forza and how they use machine learning to kind of create AI that will adapt over time and that will, kind of mimic your friends that you're playing with. And I feel like that would be really cool if they could do that at Codemasters. Like, I know they're probably on a smaller budget than Turn 10 Studios, but hey, I'd be willing to pay for it. Hell, just charge $70 instead of $60 for the game. If we could get better AI and crossplay and multiplayer career modes, like, I wouldn't mind that when it comes to the next gen game. But all right, that's it for me. Let me know if there's anything that I missed, or if you have any suggestions on things that could make league racing a lot more competitive. Like, what did you learn? Do you have a league race that you participated in that you really enjoyed? Would love to know. So let me know down in the comments. And as always, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys next season. Peace.